Hey everyone, I wanted to talk about mental health today and kind of tell you a little bit about my story. So, I have dealt with anxiety my whole life, and it manifests in lots of different ways, panic attacks. My biggest thing was not being able to sleep at night, and I've just struggled with, your typical anxiety stuff. Generalized anxiety disorder is what I was diagnosed with many, many years ago, and I never took medication or anything for it. And it was a struggle. And the more stressful my life became, the bigger my business, Lemon Squad Auto Inspections, got, the worse my anxiety got. And I'd get to the point where I could lay in bed all night long and not get a wink of sleep. And so I've struggled with that sort of stuff throughout my whole life. And if you guys want to discuss more about all those little details of how anxiety affected me, let me know, and I'll do another video on that. But I had it somewhat managed, if you could say that, with hiking and eating and doing things, everything I could to do without doing medication. And I had it kind of managed. In other words, it was still horrible, and I would still have nights where I couldn't sleep, but it wasn't every single night. And then something traumatic happened to me a little over 2 years ago. My dad and my cousin Josh Ferris, were going to go to my house when I was still living in Pequot Lakes one early morning on a Monday. And they were going to get in the car and they were going to drive down from my house down to St. Paul Harley. And they were going to meet me at the Harley dealer to pick me up because I was going to leave early that morning too on my bike, on my motorcycle, and drive there. And those guys would drive me back. So Josh lived an hour and a half away in a town called McGrath, Minnesota. And I lived in Pequot Lakes, Minnesota. So it's about an hour and 20-minute ride. And he decided to take his motorcycle that morning. And I had him on maps. And I could see him on my phone. I could see where he's at. He was just getting into Brainerd, which was about a 15, 20-minute drive from my house. And I decided I was going to leave ahead of time and take off towards St. Paul Harley. And on my way out of town, I decided to go a different route, which would have been the way he was coming in. And I came across an accident scene. And I didn't give it much thought at first. But then when I got a little closer and I saw the motorcycle that I recognized as the motorcycle I bought for my cousin Josh, upside down, and got a little closer and realized what was going on. And my cousin had died at the scene. And I remember, it's kind of a blur, but I remember the patrol officer asking me if I was okay to ride my motorcycle home. And I said yes, and I did ride home, but it was the most unsafest, in my mind, ride I've ever had. I was thinking someone was going to hit me from every angle, and I was just scared I wasn't going to make it home. So when that happened, things really spiraled out of control for me as far as mental health went. And it got to where I wasn't sleeping at all. I'd go to sleep. I was back on that accident scene. And in my mind, it was like I was there, like it was reliving it. I never had dreams that vivid, quite like that before. It would wake me up when I did get to sleep. I wouldn't sleep long. And it got to the point where I had a few nights of no sleep. And this was going on now for months after the accident actually happened. And I finally went down to urgent care. Reagan drove me down to urgent care one morning after not sleeping all night. And the doctor I met, his name was Dr. Moriarty. He's a doctor in Brainerd, Minnesota. I'm trying to think what those are called. It isn't an emergency room. It's urgent care. And he's an urgent care doctor, but when I saw him, he told me that he used to have his own practice, and at his own practice, he specialized in anxiety, and he wanted to put me on medication. And after explaining to him my whole life, telling him that all my rest of my family's on medication for anxiety, he said it was just something I would probably have to go on and be on for the rest of my life. And he put me on a medication that he also was taking himself, citalopram, and I think that's generic for Celexa. So I take 40 milligrams of Celexa every morning. And he put me on that and sent me home. He gave me another medication as well to help me sleep. Not like a sleep medication, but one that kind of calmed you down a little bit. And I don't remember what that was, but I ended up getting to sleep, and there hasn't been a night since that day, and that was February 8th of 2022 that happened. So we're coming up on 2 years. I haven't missed a day of medication in 2 years, and it's changed my life. So I always did a lot of hiking. The last 2 years, I've even started hiking more. I go almost daily. I haven't been doing that as much this winter, but I've still been going. And now we had 40 degrees today, and I went and did a hike today. So I do a lot of hiking, meditation, and trying to eat healthy, trying to stay healthy, and not letting stress get to me as much. The medication really was a game changer, though, and I'm glad I took it. And I'll probably be on it for the rest of my life because it did such great things for me. So during that 2 years that I've been on medication, I was on this like health journey, trying to find out more about myself, and I decided to go and have some testing done to see if I had attention deficit disorder. And I went to a place called Stone Arch Psychology out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I went down there, and it's supposed to be 2 full days of testing, or almost full days. And they were able to make 1 long day of testing for me, so I wouldn't have to go twice. Since it's in Minneapolis and I'm in Duluth, it's almost 3 hours for me to drive down and almost 3 hours back. So they were really accommodating to help me out to do it all in 1 day. But it was also a lot of testing, and it was really, really grueling testing. So, I did all that testing. Come to find out, 4 months after I did all the testing, I do not have attention deficit disorder. I'm on, I wouldn't even say I'm on the spectrum. I have autism, is the way I was told. I'm a number 14, whatever that means, and I think it's at 9 and over or something. I have autism, so I'm trying to learn more about that. And and the doctor was really nice that helped me get diagnosed, and it answered a lot of other questions for me too. So I've got some notes here. I'm going to kind of read about how autism has impacted me my whole life, and I didn't realize this was what was causing a lot of my issues. I'm just going to read some stuff I wrote down here. Anxiety has been a constant companion throughout my life. I also experience hyperfixation, often becoming deeply engrossed in specific topics or activities. So that's something I've always done, hyperfixation. That's helped me with Lemon Squad. If it wasn't for that hyperfixation, I don't know if I ever would have grew it as big as I did. It made me focus in and concentrate and get things done. And it was a really big project starting that business and getting it to the level it was when I sold it. Poor decisions have been a challenge too, exasperated by attempts to self-medicate with alcohol to alleviate anxiety. So that was something I did a lot in my earlier years. I drank, and I drank a lot. And I did that not really knowing why, but looking back, I was self-medicating because the anxiety was so horrible. One of the other things with autism that I found out was one of my deals is nostalgia. Nostalgia kind of consumes me at times, and I reflect on both the positive and negative aspects of the past when I think of nostalgia. So it could be my grandparents and happy things, and it could be also some bad things. And for example, just the other day, I talked to somebody who I hadn't talked to since I was probably 17, 18 years old. And the last time we talked, I wasn't very nice, and as the way I remembered it. And we talked recently, and he says, "No, I don't remember that at all. You were always great." And that was nice to hear. So it kind of makes me wonder how well I remembered some of that stuff, how much of it was just in my head and blowing it out of proportion over all these years. But that's one of the things I do. There's a thing called stimming. It's a coping mechanism. My brain craves constant stimulation. So even when I'm sitting in front of the TV watching a movie, I've got to be reading a book or playing on my iPad to keep my brain stimulated. It's just the way my brain works. I can't sit there and sit still and watch that movie. I'm thinking of too many things at once going on, which also was part of the reason I didn't get to sleep much. Let's see here. What else can I tell you guys? Maintaining eye contact. You'll notice in my videos I make, I think I'm being pretty good for this one, but in a lot of my videos, I kind of go like this and stuff, and I have a hard time looking into the camera. And that's one of my autism traits, I guess. I have a hard time keeping extended eye contact with people in conversation. I look away and stuff a lot, and I'm finding out, I'm being told that was one of the issues that that comes from autism. Humor, jokes. Sometimes I get them. A lot of times I don't. I have to have my wife explain to me the joke. I guess that's something to do with autism. I don't get them. I take things very factual. My literal interpretation is very common with me and common with autism. And that's not very good when you're talking jokes. I also have a keen awareness of small details like patterns, smells, sounds that go unnoticed by other people. But I see that stuff. It's weird. And it's always been that way. And I never understood why I'm like that way. Well, with this diagnosis that I've gotten in the last 6 months of having autism, I've really learned a lot about myself and how that affects me. So anyway, I just want to tell you guys that's who I am. That's where I come from. As far as mental health goes, it's still a journey. I'm on this medication now. I have this diagnosis now. Is life perfect? No. I still have autism. I still deal with these things I just was talking about, just not as bad. The medication has helped. I go to sleep at night, and it's much more manageable than it ever was, more than it ever has been in my whole life. I don't drink. I don't do anything, drugs or anything like that. I can just do it with my medication, and life's really, really in a good place for me these days. So anyway, I hope if anybody has any similar stories or anything, please tell. I'd love to hear them. If you are having some of these issues and you need help or somebody to talk to, please reach out. I can tell you what I do and what I've done to help me, and the things I've talked about today, but other things as well. So everybody have a great day. We'll see you later. Take care.